Good morning, YouTube. I am tired of putting this off. And like, if I'm just talking to myself, it just comes out very easily. But for some reason, whenever there's a camera in front of me, it doesn't come out as well. Nor if I'm being interviewed. But I feel like YouTube is really the key to immortality. That the more authentic stuff that you put into the internet that has a possibility of remaining in existence after your death, the larger your echo will be, and maybe AI in the future will be able to go back and make a facsimile of me or you if you put authentic stuff out. I don't know what I'm saying. See, maybe I never say anything great. Maybe it just sounds good in my head and I think that it's great. It's a delusion. And that's why I've been avoiding putting it out there. I don't know. Anyway, so I'm trying to add valuable content to YouTube, and I only have education in culinary arts, and don't feel like an expert in the field. I mean, I did do quite a bit of sourdough baking, but aside from that, it's tangential already. What am I here for? I'm here to so aside from culinary arts and regular arts and writing, which never any books, it's all been essays, what do I have of value to share to YouTube so I can become monetized and drink coffee? I would say it's I guess in my head, what I came out here to do was to hopefully in 15-20 minutes explain how I developed personality disorder, and how I found out that I had personality disorder. It was about 3 years ago. I got a email from my first wife who apologized for all the horrible things she did, saying that she was bipolar, and that she's a new person now that she's on the drugs. I thought that curious, and I always knew that there was something odd with me, so I started researching disorders. My sister, who had taught autistic children for 20 years, had said a couple times throughout my life that I reminded her of her autistic kids, and I didn't know what the hell she was talking about because her autistic kids didn't talk, and all she said was, all that I heard from her was, that they hit her and bit her and were assholes, and except the one kid that she watched outside of school. Okay, that's an exaggeration. It wasn't all. Well, no, I'm serious. She didn't say anything good to me about her kids. It was just the good that she was doing for her kids. Anyway, whenever I was irritating her, she would say, "Oh, you remind me of my kids," and I was like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" And then decades later, I watched this YouTube video about high-functioning autism. Never heard of high-functioning autism. I thought autistic people didn't speak or spoke like Rain Man. And watching this video, I quickly realized, holy crap, it describes me up and down, even to the sensory things, which I thought, I'm just sensitive. I'm an artist, so I'm sensory sensitive. She says that that's her biggest mistake is claiming that I have autism, and she's no longer speaking to me. I haven't spoken to my father for a long time. and well, our whole, there's a whole network of not speaking to each other in our family. It's a tradition. I know that one of my stepmother's brothers cut those two nasties out of their life a while ago, and it was framed around liberal and conservative guns, no gun, I don't know. Anyway, this is not about that. This is like, I went to get a official diagnosis to Dr. Knight, and he diagnosed me with autism, which was obvious, and through the stories that I told him in a 2-hour interview, he diagnosed me with bipolar 1 with psychotic features and wanted to put me on drugs right then. And I didn't take the drugs, luckily, because I, through my, for 3 years I thought I had bipolar, and I was, watching for these manic episodes, and they never happened outside of conditions that would get me excited. Like say a war starts and I get fucking amped up to try to maybe do whatever I can to like not have a war like start. And I don't feel like the energy in that time is like a chemical imbalance in my brain. Let me make sure I'm recording here. Oh yes, 6 minutes. 6 minutes of ramble. So I was watching this video by Sam Vaknin, who he's a wackadoo from Israel. He was a businessman who got caught embezzling money and then went to prison in, I believe it was Israel. And in prison, he got diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder, and he became he got a psychology degree, and don't agree with everything he says for sure, but he introduced me to the International Classification of Diseases, which differentiates itself from the DSM, the Diagnostical Statistical Manual with personality disorder. There's 11 personality disorders in the DSM, and there's only one in the ICD. One classifies severe, moderate, mild, and then if you don't exhibit, features that affect your life enough, then you just have personality difficulties. Anyway, I had been studying narcissistic personality disorder because of I was accused of being a narcissist by my my insignificant other's bestie, and I didn't know anything. This was 3 years ago. I didn't know anything about narcissistic personality disorder. I just knew narcissism, and I thought narcissism was self-love, and I thought self-love was good. But being accused of being a narcissist and not being on social media and seeing how popular the subject was, I started researching it, and in the research I realized, oh my God, I had so much abuse from narcissistic personality disorder in my life. My father, my stepfather, my first wife, my second insignificant other, and many bosses, all had, I'm sure would classify as narcissistic personality disorder. And I just thought that I was extremely victimized, which I was. But through Sam Vaknin, realizing that the personality disorder is not these little tiny bubbles within the DSM, the 11, which is antisocial, narcissistic, histrionic, borderline, schizoid, schizotypical, avoidant, dependent, and OCD. I might be missing one. In the International Classification of Diseases, there's only 5 trait characteristics, which is negative affect, which is like low self-image, anacostia, which is OCD or hyperfocus, dissociality, disinhibition, and detachment. Those are the 5 characteristic traits that define a person with a personality disorder. And I realized, oh my goodness, that's where the bipolar with psychotic features came from. I've had 3 psychotic episodes. One was triggered by drugs, and the other 2 were triggered by my circumstances, which was extreme poverty, isolation, depression. I lived in a minivan traveling around the country, which was very romantic and great for Facebook, but but actually doing it, it's very isolating and stressful, because unless you have money in the bank, and I had pennies in the bank, so as I was going, I had to make the money to keep it going. And when you're selling art, it's on the street, it can be difficult. But I did it for almost a decade, and there was only one time that I had to get a job, and that was at the Twin Cities during a heat wave. I weed whacked for a couple months to make the money to get back to New Orleans. I wasn't on the road all the time. During the off season, I would leave New Orleans, and during the season, the few months, I would go back and stay in a gallery in the back on a futon and run the gallery and sell paintings. But I am sidetracked again. So yeah, I lost touch with reality. My reality testing just went out, and delusions of grandeur, paranoid delusions, that kind of thing. Whenever you really, there's no doubt. Whenever you're delusional, it's like, I see this tree here, and I have no doubt that this tree here is. Whenever you're in a delusional state, that tree might not be the tree. That tree might be an entity that's communicating with you, and it's just as real as just the tree sitting there whenever you're normal. So how does anyone develop this? I am thoroughly convinced through studying the 4 main figures in my life, and now myself, that it's actually personality disorder. It's just called personality disorder because it's very persistent. Is that the right word? It's like depression you can get over, but it's very difficult because it's from childhood trauma, not necessarily severe childhood trauma. It could be depending on the child's temperament. Let's say that this child has a very needy temperament when it's born, and it just doesn't get the attention that it needs. That child, even though from the outside it doesn't look like they're being abused, the child doesn't know. And that's dependent on your temperament. So some children need more attention to develop a stable personality than others. I don't think that I had a temperament that made me very well, who knows what my temperament was, but my mother said that I was easy to please, but I don't really trust her because she was going through hell from the time I was 1 to 4 or 3. So I believe personality disorder is actually childhood. It's complex post-traumatic stress disorder in children from 1 to 4. Whenever they're developing their identity, their ego is being formed. They're separating and individuating. They're discovering that they're separate from their mother, the primary caretaker, and they're establishing boundaries. And it's really important to do to become a healthy individual. Otherwise, you'll have these, you'll develop the complex post-traumatic stress disorder, also specific complex CPTSD, and disinhibition, dissociality. Those 2 are like trouble. They can get you in trouble. And I always thought of myself as a really good person because of my core values. You know, I'm an environmentalist. You know, I have a recycling. I'm working. You know, I love the earth. I don't want suffering on the planet. But depending on how you view what is right or wrong, with the added element of disinhibition and dissociality, and you can be a real terror dick. And I was never mean to anybody that, or you know, that didn't deserve it. And there's the thing. I mean, you have this. It's called psychic equivalence, where it's like a person believes that what they believe, and they should always know that there's a level of it being really true, or you know, that it's absolutely true. That no, this you know, Saddam Hussein, Osama bin Laden, Putin, Kim Jong-un, Donald Trump, these are all fucking absolute evil people. Mind you, all of them have personality disorder, I'm sure of it. So they're damaged and they're sick people. But evil, you know, the things that they do are evil. But in their mind, it's not. Hitler wasn't evil in his mind. Hitler was trying to save the fucking world and make humanity perfect, right? So in Hitler's mind, all of you were delusional, and you know, he was trying to end suffering. It's just his values were all fucked up, and the negative effect can also you just don't give a shit about yourself. You're like you're willing to lose an arm if you can see someone else lose 2 legs, you know? Which isn't good. You only have 2 arms, you know. No matter how much you think those people should, or that person should lose their legs, you know, it's not worth your arm. So I'm getting off track. CPTSD. How did I get it? What was the trauma? Well, the trauma came mostly from my father. He was born in New York City, and his mother never wanted to have children. And she was a bitch. My grandfather was cheating on her with the neighbor who was a nurse. And she would go, like my grandmother would go out at night and chain my father to the crib. This is a story I heard from my aunt. And a story I heard from my father about my aunt was that she murdered the family dog. So there's a lot of my father, whenever he was in high school, I guess he was 17, the Vietnam War was going on, and he got in some trouble at school, and my grandfather wouldn't have it. So my grandfather threatened to send him to the army, which would be sending him to Vietnam. My father said, "Fuck you, I'll sign up right now." So my grandfather drove him down to the recruiter's office and signed his life away. And then my father went into Vietnam and joined the Special Forces. Was apparently quite talented at legal terrorism and all that. So he got pretty fucked up in Vietnam, I think. Saw some pretty horrible things, did some pretty horrible things. Came back to Texas, where he was tried to be military police, and he 3 stories I heard he killed somebody that attempted to rape my mother, but I can't get confirmation on these stories because my family's memory is getting very selective. Anyway, I heard another story that he went into the mess hall carrying his M16, and that's a big no-no in the States or wherever. I don't know. You're not supposed to going to the mess hall with an M16. But I think the big thing was he got my mother pregnant with my sister, and she was an officer, and he was an enlisted, he's like a sergeant, and so that's a big no-no. So he had to quit the Army. He delivered soda for a while, Coca-Cola in Texas, but that didn't work. Anyway, they moved back to New York City with my father's family, they just scream all the time and very unpleasant, and it was very distressing to my mother. They couldn't stay there, so they moved back to Pennsylvania, where my father and my grandmother butt heads. My grandmother, I believe, also had personality disorder and autism. I think my father has autism. My aunt has autism. I have autism. Anyway, they didn't get along, and there was, a lot of stress with my mother, my sister. So my dad was a sheriff for a little while, and that didn't work out or something. He tried to join the the state police, but he couldn't get in and was really pissed, and he always said that it was because of affirmative action that he didn't get into the state police. But he settled in a job at a paper mill that he got because of my mom's family, got him in there, and was making really good money for the area. And so they moved to Duncansville. My father, my mother, my sister, and then me as a fetus. And I was born there, where I guess they were starting to get a little stabilized. They built a house, though my father started a war. Did he start it? There was a war that my father was involved in with the neighbors. There was a spite fence and paint thrown on a house, and I don't know. Anyway, it just seems like trouble followed my father. And then I came into the situation. I was born, and my mother was working as a nurse. My father was the paper mill guy, and we had a neighbor who had 3 daughters, and I would go over and play with them. And they played with dolls, and I would play with the dolls, and I would they had fun dressing me up, and I didn't even know that guys weren't supposed to, boys weren't supposed to wear pink or whatever, I don't know, but I had fun dressing up with them. But that really bothered my father, because he's a cowboy macho man, and even though I have giant balls, I'm not your typical cowboy. Oh, wait, was that movie Gay Cowboys? Someone back? I don't know. Maybe all cowboys are gay. Maybe Wayne is gay. That's my fault. Anyway, so that bothered him, and there was but he was also trying to make me crazy, I guess. He had me jumping off of roofs and mezzanines and rappelling and holding chainsaws whenever the chainsaw was bigger than me. He was really worried about having a sissy son. So he liked to show me off to his friends of how fearless I was. I recall I have a scar on my hand from, I was probably barely able to walk. I don't remember this, but I burnt my hand on the muffler of his motorcycle. So what was a little kid doing in a garage crawling around by a hot motorcycle? It could have been my face. But at any rate, it's the complex post-traumatic stress disorder is not from a one-time traumatic event. It's small events over and over and over and over and over and over again. And this personality disorder is that happening when you're developing yourself, your identity. the core of personality disorder is identity disturbance, not recognizing boundaries, viewing other people as extensions of yourself. You know, and in the personality disorder realm, I've hovered in antisocial, narcissistic, histrionic, avoidant, dependent, and schizotypical. I think it's one of the schizos, the odd, but you know, it's hard to tell which is schizo and which is autism. So my father started fucking the neighbor's wife behind my mother's back, and another story that I heard, like, you know, I heard that at this point Wayne, my father, crashed his motorcycle with the neighbor on the back. I don't think my mom would ride the motorcycle. She certainly wouldn't enjoy it. But his kneecap got, the neighbor's wife's kneecap got ripped off, and my father broke his collarbone, and they went to the hospital where my mom worked. So I guess the jig was up with that. And I heard that my father tried to kill himself at work grabbing electrical lines. Now I can't confirm this because none of my family, you know, their memory is not good. If they wanted to wipe it out, it's gone. Whoosh, doesn't exist. So, and it would just be a weird thing to make up that my father tried to kill himself. But anyway, so he got busted, and the jig was up. Wayne defended himself, saying that my mother couldn't give him what he really needed, which I guess was like blowjobs or something. Because I think my mom would probably do that, but whatever it is he needed, my mother, like anger, like, because whatever my father needed, my mother couldn't give him. So they got divorced. He left, got a condo with my neighbor friends that became my stepsisters, and my sister and I moved to a trailer in Newry, and you know, I only saw my dad every other weekend after that. So I don't know the exact, you know, the exact things that happened to me. I know that I was, growing up, I was the golden child because my father said to my sister's face that she was a mistake. His, you know, biggest mistake was, you know, she didn't get aborted and he got stuck with my mother. But I was planned, and I was the right sex, and the right intelligence, and you know, I was the golden child. I was going to be, you know, Wayne 2.0. He wanted me to be a jet pilot because fuck, the people on the ground are dumb. Unless you're special forces, right? But no, the real good warriors are up in the air in the $5 million jets or whatever, how much ridiculous money they cost. And so my dad tried to court me up until I was 13, because when I turned 13, I would be able to move back in with him. So he was courting me up until that point. He would let me drink beer, you know, just be one of the boys, cut it up, and you know, if it was macho, yes. Macho, yes. That's what it was. But then whenever I was, you know, finally when I was 13, I was like, yeah, I'm going to move in with my dad. It's going to be fun. We're going to shoot guns. We're going to go fishing and skydiving and all this great stuff. And, you know, I moved in, and 13, 14, I was in Roosevelt Junior High. You know, he was a big football player in high school. He wanted me to be a football player. I got tackled once in a concussion. I was like, fuck this. This is a dumb game. It's a dumb game. Any game you get regular concussions, not a game. Not a game worth playing. Boxing, football, time to retire those, humanity. Anyway, yeah, right. Whenever so then I was like, well, I still want to be tough, so I started wrestling, but I was a little chubby. Very bad thing to do when you're wrestling. You can't be chubby. If you're chubby, you've lost, right? Just a little chub, because these people are like drinking broth, like getting like dehydrating themselves before they start. I don't know. It's just another weird sport. No concussions, but just weird. But gay, right? So even though it was tough, it was like and I wasn't good at it. Then I had a real falling out with him. And once I bought a skateboard, game over, I pierced my ear. I pierced my ear up here. I had my hair covered over it, and he like found it one day, knocked me upside the head and saw it, and I was like, oh no. But yeah, there was extreme discipline. And psychological, it wasn't like a lot of it was, they taught psychological operations to the special forces, and I really feel like I grew up with that training. But yeah, once I started, long hair, eyeliner, skateboarding is like, fuck you, you're garbage, or your mother, you too much of your mother in you. Anyway, I went from golden child to black sheep, like right when I hit puberty, and yeah. So that was it. There's no single event that caused personality disorder, and it's very rare for a person, especially a person who has hovered in the cluster B area, to become self-aware. I'm seeing more and more people on YouTube, probably similar to me, just like has this shit they had to work through their entire life, and they're like, can I at least get a break? Can I at least make some money off of this? I'm assuming that that's what most people are, it's just not a how many views will this get? Please like and subscribe. I'm trying to broadcast my live painting on YouTube. I know I can do it on Facebook and Tumblr, but they don't keep a record of it. I want to broadcast it and have a record of the paintings that I did. So if you like this video, please subscribe. But I think the negative effect is weird because it's really unconscious. I can see it in actions of the past, but it's like it's said that the narcissists are all inside, they're vulnerable and weak and insecure, and I felt insecurity in my life from finances and living in a society that doesn't give a fuck, where there's all the homeless people are sick. They're drug addicts because they're homeless and sick. They're not sick and homeless because they're drug addicts. And we would just look what's happening in Oregon. It's left and right. They just don't give a fuck. The left thinks, oh, well, we'll just legalize drugs and everything will be okay. And there's no support for these people. And now there's little tiny micro city states with like little homeless mayors, because the police aren't. There's like rape and public, defecate. Like, there's plenty of crimes that the cops could address outside of the legal drug thing that's happening in Portland and San Francisco, and but this is also they're sick, and it's all from trauma, and being homeless is traumatic, and it's all good and fun to make fun of Donald Trump that his daddy didn't hug him enough, but that's it. Stop making fun of the father motherfucker. This is way off subject. So I'm worried, I was worried that I wouldn't be able to talk to YouTube, but it's really just make a subject and just start blathering. Thanks for watching.